the one thing that we do not do, we don't use lights with Cheetah at night. They are diurnal predators, and he's out here not to hunt. Unless something came now, unless there was an opportunity that surfaced. Interestingly, there is a little bit of a termite mound just off to the side here. I'm guessing he might even go and lie there at some point. Nice view of Scott and Jay on the other side of him. WildEarth viewing Cheetah. We could swap cameras. We could swap cameras and we could just... Okay, your turn to take a photograph of me of Cheetah. We're just showing you what the two vehicles look like from a distance. We don't ever get to show you a vehicle in a sighting, and this is how it gives you an idea of sort of distance and well, this is what we appear. There's Jigger and Scott and Jason, and then we'll just switch so that you can see us from their perspective.
Well, I don't think it gets much better than this. We've got both angles perfectly covered here, and if anything were to approach, we would certainly be able to tell, because we've got a 360-degree view now covered by the WildEarth team. And this is such a special moment, and really, really wonderful that we can both be sharing it here with all of you. And I have no doubt that a lot of you are taking screenshots of this, and we are always so grateful for all the screenshots that you do capture of us and all of the animals. And this is a great opportunity for us to express our gratitude for those screenshots, because without you snapping away, we wouldn't have any of this footage to look at when we grow old. So thank you so much for the screenshots that you do take. Marc's shooting from the hip there, as you can see. A tried and tested photographic technique. Got a question through from Bob in Iowa. Good evening, Bob, and welcome along. Bob is interested to know whether cheetah are as successful a hunter as wild dogs are. Now, for those of you who don't know, wild dog have an exceptionally high strike rate when hunting, and obviously it does depend greatly on the individual pack, and even a certain pack will go through times when they are hunting efficiently together and at some stages less efficiently, just like a sports team, I guess you could relate it to. And it's no different for cheetah, even though they may not be hunting in a team, unless there's a coalition of males, of course, but typically they're solitary. And some may be more successful than others, but I don't think they will be as successful in general as wild dogs when it comes to hunting. But good question, and it would be interesting to know of some research done on individual cheetah, comparing their success rates amongst the same species, as well as comparing them to wild dog. But sadly, I don't have any of those facts stored in my head, but I'm sure there will be somewhere, and it is worth looking into. Good question, Bob. Just got a question through from Jane in Colorado. Good evening and welcome. Jane is interested to know whether male cheetahs will kill cubs that they have not sired, just like lions and leopards would do. Now, for those of you who don't know, it is harsh, but it is normal behavior for both lion and leopard males to kill cubs that they have not sired. And the same applies for cheetah. So if they did not father cubs and come across a female who still has the responsibility of raising those cubs, they will kill them. And what that does is it allows them to then get their genes into the system. Got a question through from Carolyn asking if there's any purpose for the white tip at the end of the tail. And yes and no. For a male who has no requirements to help in raising his cubs that he sires, he would therefore not typically have any young animals requiring to follow him, whereas the female cheetah will have cubs that will need to follow her, and that big white ball of fluff at the end of the tail would be a good lure to keep her cubs focused on her when she's moving through the bush, and that way keep following her. So definitely a follow me signal, but only probably relevant for the females and not the males. And I think it's just a matter of moments now before this cheetah gets up and starts moving, and isn't that going to be wonderful to see him pacing through this open plain? The grooming and yawning and stretching is a very good indicator. What we're going to do is try and creep a little bit closer, because people are interested to see the paw pads of the cheetah, and it does have some of those paws displayed, so we will be able to creep a little bit closer, but now it's turned back over again. So maybe Marc will be able to get closer, as he is busy repositioning, and I think he does have that plan. So we're going to cut back to Marc now, as he is in a better position than us. So enjoy the angles, and I'm hoping that they are a little bit closer than us and you will be able to get a good angle.
Well, someone's asked to get a little bit of a closer angle on the paws, and unfortunately he rolled over when Scott and Jason were trying to get that. He's now lying in a really great position for us to see at least his hind paws. You can see those 3 lobes at the back, which are characteristic of all the cat tracks. But also how the middle lobe of the 3 is sort of indented, it's set in, which the leopard and the lion aren't. But most noticeably, and I don't know if you can pick that up, but that are his claws. And not so much in the tusk marks. Okay, copy. I'm wondering what tusk marks there were on the cheetah. Nick is telling me that there's a bit of discussion about the tusk marks, and I'm looking at the cheetah and I'm thinking, what tusk marks on the cheetah? Okay, I'm being silly. But yes, I guess we could see. Oh, but there's an added thing. That's from a Juma Land Cruiser from this morning. We got charged by a Juma Land Cruiser in the leopard sighting. Put Jason on a vehicle and something's going to bump into it. Sorry, I'm being frivolous. We had a cheetah sighting. Be serious. But yes, I guess you don't often get to see us in our vehicles, in our offices. Our toys. But super wonderful toys they are, to be able to bring this to you live from the African bushveld. I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that can do it the way we do it. A wild cheetah that's made an appearance here at Djuma Game Reserve on an open area we call Quarantine. We dream of it every day to see cheetah here, because it's one of the only open areas we really have access to, or large open areas that we have access to. He's a cheetah that will roam quite a vast area, and no doubt there are other big open areas that he utilizes or hunts in. If I'm not mistaken, he's still got a little bit of pink fur around his face, probably from eating quickly. He's getting a bit of blood on his fur. From his position, if anything, because of the lie of the land, the topography, if anything was to come out onto the open area or approach him in any way, he's lying fairly low down. He will see their heads appearing above the horizon against the sky. One of the advantages of being very, very flat like a cheetah and being in open grassland like this is to be able to see things from a distance, to be able to have forewarning or foreknowledge if it's for hunting. Lynn in Michigan's asking how can he be relaxed, or so relaxed, with vehicles if he doesn't come here so often. Well, Lynn, we don't know what frequency he comes through Juma, but in all the other areas that he does probably travel, he encounters vehicles. All the other game lodges, I'm pretty sure that the other lodges around here have seen him before and seen him on numerous occasions that have resulted in him becoming quite accustomed to vehicles and being relaxed with the vehicles. There's a difference in the way a cheetah behaves when he's on a kill, when he's feeding, because it's that moment, from the moment that he kills something till the moment that he's, or she for that matter, till the moment that they've either had enough of the carcass or they're being chased off. But for that entire time, that from start of feeding to whatever the outcome is, they are super vigilant. Most animals make a noise when they are killed. Most animals give a death cry. Cheetah try their best to stifle it. That doesn't always happen. Being either a hunter that strangles their prey, or they bring it down at such high speed that they're able to, the neck is broken, so there is no noise. But nonetheless, there's a little squirrel right in front of me, actually making its way towards the cheetah. It's looking, it's running in the grasses and lifting its head up, waiting to see, and he's just noticed it. He's just seen the squirrel now coming towards him. He's sitting up and watching it. Scott, squirrel. And he's twisting around, watching the squirrel. I don't think that was a very brave squirrel. I don't think that squirrel's ever seen a cheetah. Sorry, you get distracted. Sorry about that distraction. Where was I? What was I saying? I watched that squirrel come to the marula tree, and I thought, oh, he's going to climb the tree and start alarming. But it did even a braver thing. Actually ran towards the cheetah. He couldn't believe it. He was flabbergasted. So cheetahs actually travel over quite large areas, and other guides get to see them, and they get to learn how to calm down. I was saying that also they get very nervous around a kill because other things are likely to come and steal it from them. They don't have strength. I mean, look at those legs. Skinny legs. Small jaws. Thin waist. They're kind of scrawny cats in a way. So they don't really have much of a chance in a fight, and that's why they don't really stick around for a fight. And they'd rather have an advanced warning of something coming in when they're feeding and get away quickly, which is, I think, what he did this morning. There was a leopard. The fact is that there was a leopard around anyways. Weird why that leopard didn't come out after he'd killed something. But evidently the leopard did have an encounter with him. Now, if I remember correctly, 2011, I think it was in Duna, off of Zoe's Road. Could have been Mishu. Maybe it was Mishu. One of Karula's cubs, at about the age of 2 or so, had an encounter with a cheetah just off of Zoe's Road, in that open area where we sometimes watch the sunrise. There's now a new little track that cuts through that piece of bush towards Quarantine. There was an encounter between the leopard and cheetah, and I'm wondering if it's not maybe even the same cheetah. That also could be. Oh, Ellen. Yeah, I can see the scar now that I'm looking through the binoculars. Ellen in Arkansas was saying that there's a scar, the lower left of his nose, sort of a diagonal scar going down the front of his nose. And yes, Ellen, very much so. That'll probably be there forever. Or the hair might grow, but there will always be a little bit of a scar there. And that'll be something that you'll be able to see as a key identifying feature, where you don't even have to worry about spot patterns and things. Once again, there was a little bit of a strong breeze that blew through here, stronger than this prevailing wind that we've had all afternoon, and that little gust of wind made him sit up and look about. Sound-wise, there's a sound of fork-tailed drongos and starlings and babblers. That lovely evening sound of the birds trying to get the last word in before they all go to sleep. Evidently a lot of chat about names. I guess since the lion and leopard are named, I don't blame a lot of people for asking if there's a name or if there's a way to name him. His name is Cheetah, for now. I think it's entirely up to the guides of the Sabi Sand whether they name individual cheetah or not. It causes way too much confusion when we put names to things, and we are only temporarily here. It's the residents of the Sabi Sand. Marcia in Texas. Hello, Texas. How are you, Marcia? The survival rate of cheetah young, as opposed to other cats. Marcia, I'm afraid I have to, once again, this depends. I think there are different areas where cheetah success rate is higher. I can't give you a general answer, because what works in one area might not work in another, and some of the influencing factors on the survival rate of cheetah are most obviously lion, leopard and hyena populations within the same area, that interspecific competition that exists, as well as whether the habitat is sufficient, whether there is good enough habitat for the cheetah. I would say that the habitat type, the vegetation that occurs in an area, very much dictates the number of prey species that are in an area, and that always will indicate, or that will always have an influence on the population of the predators that occur there. And even then, predator populations vary accordingly, or according to different criteria. You see, you can't take every area in Africa and say that for every 10 square miles you've got one pride of lion, and you've got 10 leopards, and you've got 3 cheetah. It doesn't really work that way. Things vary, and even within an area, we can go through times here in the Sabi Sand where there is an era of relative ease of pressure on cheetah that they're able to have higher success rates at raising their cubs, and then there can be times when maybe because of lion pressure and hyena pressure things change, and that might be at a time when cheetah populations are in a particular area, not saying in general, but in a particular area like the Sabi Sand, there can be times when maybe cheetah populations have reached a point, kind of like leopard populations up here right now, almost like saturation. There's nowhere for these leopards to go when they're getting mature, and so there's probably a higher mortality rate because of it. There's just so many factors that it's very hard to give you a singular answer to that kind of question. Let's go over to different angle again. Slightly more to the front of him than we are. We'll go over to Scott.
Welcome back to myself and Romeo's vehicle. And I'm not sure what the angle was like from Marc's vehicle, but you can see his left paw. And on that left paw, you'll notice that the back of the pad at the opposite end to the toes is very pronounced and angular, more so than lion and leopard. So that's sadly, well, it is the best angle we've got at the moment. Now, what has he seen? Nothing that I can see at this stage, but something got his attention down there. Now, you may have heard Marc's vehicle start up, and he is heading off. And the reason why he is heading off is, unlike lion and leopard, we do not view cheetah after dark with the spotlights. So Marc's decided to head off and start looking for some other interesting animals for us to view, which is a great idea because we probably have about another 10 to 15 minutes worth of light that we'll be able to stay with them, maybe a little bit longer, and we will stay with them for as long as we can until it does get too dark to film without the use of spotlights. And the reason being is cheetah are diurnal cats. Their nighttime vision isn't nearly as good as that of lion and leopard. And just like we avoid shining on other daytime animals, mainly herbivores, but also wild dog, for example, we will practice the same procedure with cheetah. Well, I hope he doesn't move a muscle and decides to sleep here this evening. We've just got a question through from Kathy in Florida. Good evening, Kathy, and welcome on board. Kathy is interested to know the lifespan of cheetah, and it's a good question. Around the 10-year mark is a figure that I've heard. So there and thereabouts. I would have personally thought a few years older than that, but 10 years is a figure that is quoted in various different textbooks, so
Negative.
sadly not next. This is as good as the camera can perform in this light. Did I just say goodest? I may have. By goodest I meant best. This is the best the camera can perform in low light. Another question has just come through from Deb in Ohio. Good evening and welcome. Deb is interested to know if there's any female cheetah patrolling the Sabi Sands, and I'm sure there are in the different parts of the Sabi Sands. We traverse currently about 3,000 hectares of 65,000. So that gives you an idea of the tiny patch of the Sabi Sands that we are entitled to explore. So it's a lot bigger than the area that we can traverse, and there certainly will be some females moving around. But in all my time in the Sabi Sands, cheetah numbers have been very low, and there's probably not too many ladies for this guy. I don't know of any specific details though, sadly, but I'm certain there'll be some floating around. As I was saying, it looks like he may spend the evening here, and it's a great place for him to spend the evening. Just like prey animals will seek refuge in open clearings, animals like cheetah will do the same thing, because it's going to be very difficult for anything to creep up on this cheetah in this very open clearing. Contrary to if it was in thick bush, especially in this windy weather, animals would be able to creep up a lot easier to it. Now, if he does spend the night here, I'm sure he'll be awake far earlier in the morning than we are, sadly, and he'll probably start moving when it is still dark. But Marc and myself will certainly aim to try and find his tracks and do our best to track him down as soon as we can. Well, you may be able to hear Jason letting off a few giggles. He's easy to humour, and that's him giggling in the background. I've just got a question through from Robin asking, how do I know that cheetah's night vision isn't as good as lion and leopard? And that's simply from what I've been told. I've sadly never had the opportunity to actually Okay, well, Mark's just found something very interesting, folks, so I'm not going to carry on with that question, and we're going to cut across to Marc and find out what he's found. And it'll probably be goodbye from the Cheetah this evening, so this is going to be the last views we have of it. And we'll do our best to find him in the morning.
All I can see is a little bit of... Folks, what I have is a young genet cat, and it's just in there. See if it might moving around. It's a little bit... It's a youngster, so it's playing around in a tree. Probably mom has... You see a little bit of a ring tail, almost like a few of the spots. Almost like a raccoon's tail, ring tail, like a... Yeah, maybe from this angle. There. No.
Going down.
Yeah. Well, it was pretty much ignoring us and climbing in and out of that tree. Small spotted genet. G-E-N-E-T. And although it is called a genet cat, it is not really a cat. It does look very much like a cat. It's very similar. It's got very similar paws to a cat, although it's got claws like a cheetah. But it is actually mongoose family. It's closer to the mongoose. But then mongoose are also closer to cats than they are dogs. It gets complicated, but well, it was a genet, very special little genet. We are now at the spot pretty much where I left Mbula this morning, and he hasn't been found this evening. There were a couple of people that were trying to find his tracks, but nobody could find his tracks, so it's very possible that he hasn't or hadn't come out of this very thick area of bushveld. Maybe now the darkness is going to start, or maybe he has started moving already. It'd be nice to see if we can maybe find his tracks coming out. He might have headed further south again towards Treehouse or Twin Dams. I'm hoping maybe, just like this morning, he might be lying in the road somewhere. Easter bunny. A scrub hare. Chelapan. Actually, it'd be interesting to see if there's any water left here at Chelapan. Haven't been down here for a little while. Here's a young scrub hare. They only come out for Easter and Pesach. Today, many, many years ago in the mid-70s, today, a very particular day in the Jewish calendar, known as Shabbat Hagadol. And yeah, no, I shouldn't be driving holding a light on Shabbat, but Shabbat Hagadol was my bar mitzvah piece. Any of you know what that means? It was about a few decades ago. Just a few decades. And Shabbat HaGadol is the Sabbath before Passover. Next thing we have to see is a honey badger, the only thing we have on the list, we haven't seen on the list. I bet you that's from Alan. And porcupine, Susie saying porcupine. Porcupine pie, porcupine pie. Vanilla soup. Tutti frutti.
That's the number serval on that list.
And serval, yeah. Him saying serval on the list. I will add aardvark. And not an aardvark in a tree. We've seen one of those already. We don't want to see another one of those. So, I don't see any sign of our monster leopard coming this way. So, let's go up towards Weaver's Nest. Does that take double A or triple A? Triple A. Well, Debbie, hello Debbie. Debbie's in Lakewood. I have to try and guess, where would Lakewood be? Could it be Florida? Debbie's asking if quarantine mail and New Jersey, Lakewood, then okay. Sure. Anyways, if quarantine mail and Konuma were to come up, would they hide from Mvula? I don't think so, not at the moment. I don't know, actually. I don't think they know. I don't think anybody would really be able to predict what would go down. Based on recent events, based on past experiences with leopards here, and I have to admit, whether it's the same leopards or different leopards, they are just that, they are past events. You can't really come to any conclusion, or you can't make any assumptions about what a cat is going to do in a given circumstance, because it's not going to necessarily be the same way that it behaved the last time you saw it in similar circumstances, and circumstances can never be the same, so they never behave the same way. Behavior, once again, all over again is this wonderful unknown that is animal behavior, and it's one of the things that keeps us watching, and one of the things that drives us, one of the things that makes life out here so phenomenal, in that we want to be here when that happens so that we can see what can happen. That's a possibility that, and I'm cheating, sorry, but I thought I saw something behind that lid right there. Maybe not. There's a possibility that they'd accept each other's company, but they might not be physically interactive. They might be able to be in the same place. I can remember there was a time with Yambila Jordan and Induna being in the same tambuti tree with a nyala kill, and there wasn't even any hissing going on. But at the same time, there was a time when Mishu had an impala in a marula tree, and Induna was in another marula tree 50 feet away, and the two of them were shooting daggers at each other. They were spitting, hissing fire and fury. But I suppose that was that particular day. That's behavior. It's how hungry they are, it's how stressed they are, it's how threatened they are. There are so many things that influence behavior that make it so unpredictable. Baby chameleon, oh, it's tiny. We go a little closer. I think it is. It looks like it could be. Yes, it is. Gorgeous little thing. Very small chameleon, only about 2 inches long. So it's a baby. The only way he could have gotten by without us seeing any tracks was if he crossed the road perpendicularly and he didn't walk along a road at all. But so far, so much sign of him coming out of that area where he was. Could also be because it's a fairly thick area and there's a very deep drainage line that runs from Philemon's Dip down towards Twin Dams Road. We've seen Matimba's eating a buffalo down there, very deep drainage line. A good possibility that he might have found himself something down there. And if we don't find anything tomorrow morning, it might be time to go in on foot and try and walk the drainage line and see if we can find him. But it's certainly not looking like he's coming out of there. Or he has come out. Somebody wants to know how on earth I spotted that chameleon. Well, my mother will tell you that I've been obsessed with chameleons most of my life, since a very, very young age. And I can spot a chameleon at 60 feet at 10 o'clock at night. There he is. Here's our cat. No, it's not a cat, it's a bushbuck. I just saw two big bright eyes shining back at me, and I thought, oh, maybe he's there. But, and being a bushbuck, it's lying there, could be a duiker even, hard to tell, but it's definitely an antelope. I'm not going to disturb it with the light. It's lying down under a bush. I thought it was a cat lying down. Oh, my heart leaped. Leapt. Past tense. How do you find chameleons? Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. And sometimes you don't even need lights to find a chameleon. See, chameleons go to sleep at night, and in warm nights like this, they actually sit quite far out on the branches of a tree, as we've noticed when we do see them. And while we probably do miss a lot of chameleons, every now and then you have the angle of a chameleon facing the side of a chameleon facing you, and they curl their tail up, as you've seen, and they become very, very pale green. So much so that it becomes quite reflective in the light, and they kind of stand out like a sore thumb in a way. They stand out like a sleeping chameleon. I think it's time to do the Skorokoro grass cut road. This is where Mbula went. No, I'm good. I can find chameleon and pat myself on the back, but I do have the advantage of knowing what to look for, of being able to see that little shape that is different to the shape of the leaves in the tree, and that paler green that isn't the same as the green of the tree. Joe in Wales. Hello, Joe. Nice to hear from Wales. Didn't Wales trash us at rugby or something? Some time ago? I don't know, I don't watch sport. I know. Anyways, Joe was asking if he could dig into my memory banks. And have I ever had any threatening encounters with cats? I guess you could say so. Tight moments. I can remember one day with a couple, this was in the Sulu Game Reserve up in Tanzania. There was one day that I went out pretty early, and there were, as early as it was, there were vultures flying in quite rapidly, and it seemed to be dropping out of the sky at quite a heavy rate, quite a fast rate, and most of them were dropping onto the ground. And I was convinced that, well, since they're dropping onto the ground, it's not likely that the predators are still there, that maybe they're on the carcass already and the predators have gone. And it was amongst a lot of acacia felt. It was mostly acacia, so the ground was littered with twigs, and of course every twig has numerous thorns, you know, the big white acacia thorns. And there I was tiptoeing through this acacia thorn, hoping not to disturb the vultures, trying to get closer and closer to the carcass. And it wasn't the... What? Oh, I thought you were... And I had to walk slowly because it's not the kind of ground that you can walk fast, because the thorns would pierce my feet, of course, being barefoot and all. And the next minute I heard this growl, and it was one of the male lions that was on the carcass. He had seen me, and he'd been lying down, and the growl was more of a grunt than a growl. It was more a sort of a grunt because he was on his side, and he must have heard me and got the fright where he flipped onto his haunches, as it were. And it was more a grunt, the effort of having to do so. And all I could do was to stand my ground, make myself as narrow as possible behind the little acacia, and slowly backtrack to the vehicle. And then I got into the vehicle and went up to them, and we sat and watched them ignore the vultures eating their kill. But I guess they could afford that, because when they were hungry they just went and ate another buffalo. There was a time in the Okavango Delta. It was an amazing experience. We didn't have any guests in camp, but there was a guy in camp that was rethatching some of the buildings. His name was Dave, and we called him Dave Thatcher because he was doing the thatching. And this particular day, he was waiting for materials. I think it was a weekend or something. You know, we don't really have weekends because every day is the same. But anyway, we took some time off. I didn't have guests. We hopped into a boat And he wanted to do some fishing. I wanted to do some bird watching. So it suited us both, sitting quietly in a lagoon or on the water, him fishing, me, and then we passed an island on our way back. After he hadn't caught any fish, and I'd seen a few birds. On the way back to camp, we passed an island. The monkeys were going crazy. We stopped, held on to the reeds because we were in a fast-moving channel of the papyrus. And I found an entrance to the island where elephants and hippos moved out of the water into the island, and could see the monkeys going crazy about something. I knew it was probably a leopard. They had decided to use that opportunity to try and do some more fishing. He didn't want to come onto the island. I went onto the island, and now these islands in the Okavango are not your usual islands. A lot of them are very sandy, with very sharp grasses, very hard grasses. But on the edge of the islands you have papyrus and reeds and marshland. And then you have a beautiful tree line of sausage trees and mangosteen and just really beautiful trees. Very dense wooded area. And then on the interior of the islands you have these beautiful grassland in the center of these islands. And there was some lechwe on the island, and they were looking towards me. And I'd heard these two leopard. I'd heard leopard, and I knew they were mating. So when I got off of the boat, sorry, I'm getting a story mixed. But anyways, got off of the boat, creeping through this tree line, and I could see the lechwe weren't disturbed. So I knew the leopard weren't on the interior of the island. And I turned around to head towards the boat, and there was this leopard. He was coming over a fallen log. And he was only a few feet behind me, this big male leopard. And he froze in mid-stride as I turned around and faced him. And I said to him, I was speaking to him. I said, "I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Leopard. Didn't really mean it." And he froze, and I froze. And I even called out to Dave to bring the pole, because you always carry a pole in a boat in case your motor dies, so that you can push the boat with the pole, to help me to just try and distract this leopard. But he eventually turned around and slunk off. But it was a very tense moment, standing there with just my binoculars on my hip, no shirt, no shoes, my hat on my head, and nothing else. And sticky moment. There have been others. I'll get to them maybe on other drives for the time being. Sounds like Scott's got something interesting to show you. So I'm going to go over to Scott. I don't know if we'll find a moolah tonight.
Just let me know my earpiece fell out.
You are definitely live as we speak.
Welcome back. And apologies, my earpiece just fell out there. But isn't this something else? And it sounds like Marc's also been doing a great job finding some of the smaller critters that are easier to find at night. And this is one of them. This is a nocturnal spider called a bark spider. And as we can see, it's busy spinning its web. And every evening they will build their web, and every morning they will consume all of the webbing so as to not waste any of it. Take the web down and then rebuild it every evening. So certainly not a lazy spider. And as Jason zooms out, you'll notice that it's still got a little bit of work to do this evening. And I'll try and illuminate the other parts of the web, but you can see it's just started going around on the periphery, and those peripheral webbings will then come closer and tighter as it moves closer to the circle, or to the center rather. But right now it looks like it's taking a bit of a breather. Now, we may aid in the spider's hunting plans for this evening, because by having this spotlight shining on it, There's one or two moths that are fluttering about. Now you might be wondering, how on earth would it start building the web? And what they do is, from wherever they perch, they will slowly let off a piece of webbing that will get blown by the wind and eventually anchor it onto another piece of vegetation downwind. The spider will then walk down that anchor line and let off more anchor lines, and that way set up a few anchors from which it can start building the nest. So the initial anchors will essentially be the foundations, and then it can continue to fine-tune what will eventually become an incredible masterpiece.
You can see that piece of grass, there's the anchor. Try and show.
It's difficult. There's a good one there, because you can actually see the grass getting pulled towards the web. There we go. Well done, Jason. So there's one anchor, and you can see how the grass has been pulled to the one side and then continues up to the main section of the web. And great work there on the camera, Romeo.
Thank you.
Well, we'll leave the spider to it, because I fear that our presence being here has caused it to stop doing its business, and we wouldn't want to interfere too much. So let's leave this wonderful little arachnid and continue on and see what else we can find. Just to keep you updated, the cheetah was left, well, we left him as it got basically pitch black. We left him lying in exactly the same position. So some great prospects for tomorrow morning, and I'm already looking forward to waking up bright and early and doing our best to track down this cheetah. Excuse me. It will be difficult though, and I will say that in advance, because they will often get active just as it's beginning to get light, or even when it's slightly dark, and it will therefore have a head start on us. Even at the moment when we are getting mobile, the first 10 to 15 minutes of the drive, it's very difficult for us to see any sign of tracks on the road because it's not light enough yet. So the fact that even the first 15 minutes of us driving around, we'll really battle to establish which direction he's moved in. I really am loving the fact that we are spending more time driving around after dark, and that's simply because of the change of season. A few months ago we would maybe use the spotlight for 5 or 10 minutes towards the end of the drive, and there are so many interesting nocturnal animals that, yes, they are difficult to find and sightings of them may be brief, but they are still out here and still wonderful to be able to try and show you. And an example of that is the small spotted genet that Marc managed to find for you this evening. So that's one of many of the interesting nocturnal animals that we get out here. That are interested to know what size that bark spider was, and that was Kathleen and Christine. Good evening and welcome. It was about, if I use my hand as an example, or even my watch face would maybe be better, it was probably as round as the face of my watch. So that gives you an idea of its size, and it also gives you the time. It's 7:15 South African time. So yeah, probably what's another, about half the size of a golf ball would be its total size, I would say. If you cut a golf ball in half, that would be the size of that bark spider, and it was a big one. They're not always that big. That was a trophy specimen. Thankfully, they are of no danger to us humans, so they pack a small punch with regards to their venom, and we can even handle them without worrying about being bitten.
I have a question.
We've got a question from Romeo on the back of Jigger. Go ahead with your question, Romeo.
So I've noticed that you're using a spotlight, which I find very helpful.
Yes?
Now when you find an animal, you often see that their eyes shine in the spotlight, and I often see two different colors. Is there a reason for the different colors? Is there something different with antelope or unknown?
There are different speculations, and that's a good question, Romeo. And some people say that you can tell that carnivores' eyes glow red, whereas herbivores' eyes glow yellow. And I personally haven't noticed that. Maybe that's just me, but I haven't noticed huge differences in any specific animal's eyes showing color. I think a lot depends on the spotlight you're using, and also the angle at which you are shining the light in the animal's eyes. Oh wow, look at this.
That is huge.
Incredible. Now what we have here is a monster of a stick insect, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best to position the spotlight.
I'll do it.
Okay, Jason can do that. 1 second while we just get ready, and then I'm going to go and stand next to it to give you an idea. It's a monster. It is huge. We done, Romeo?
What toothpaste do you use? Your teeth are so white.
Would you believe how big that insect is? So, it's obviously an evening for large insects and arachnids, the bark spider being the first one. Apologies. And it's slowly going about its business, crossing the road. On Buffalo's Hook cut line. Okay. Well, again, it seems like it's stopped its business because of our presence, and we will therefore carry on and see what else of interest is out there this evening. What an incredible specimen that is, though. So back to Jason's questions. I haven't actually noticed any major differences in eye color between different animals, but different people may have different opinions on that matter. there have been a few funny remarks coming through on Twitter that Nikki's just relayed to me, and the gist of it is that should not be called a stick insect, it should rather be called a log insect, and I couldn't agree more. That was an absolute monster. Oh, what else can we find out here this evening? The porcupine would be one animal that I really would love to show you. They are such interesting looking animals. And so far it's only been porcupine quills that we've been able to show you, and for... Oh, bush baby. Okay. Now, this is going to be tricky, but there's a bush baby up ahead of us here. I think I might even stop here, rather than trying to get too close. And Jason's doing a great job on camera, and there you can see they're extremely agile, so what you'll notice is that they can jump huge distances. Boink! Well, I thought our luck would run out when we left that cheetah, but evidently it hasn't, and the action continues here at Djuma. We might be able to get another glimpse of it. Now, that's a small nocturnal primate, the bush baby. I do believe Marc has managed to show you one, and a really great sighting with Brian. But this one sadly has disappeared, but at least we got a glimpse of it. And who knows what would be around the next corner. As I was saying though, before we bumped into the bush baby, is that some of you may remember Hayden from the work him and Peter did, the two other presenters, in November and December last year. And Hayden had a lucky porcupine quill that he took around everywhere with him. And that, just talking about porcupine, links me back to those happy thoughts of having Peter and Hayden here with us. Two great guys, and hopefully they'll be coming back for a special appearance at some stage in the future, because it would be great to have them back out here with us. Good idea. Well, I heard Nikki sending through some questions to Marc earlier, asking how on earth do you manage to spot chameleons out here. So what I'm hoping to do is try and spot one, and from a distance be able to show you how exactly we do it, because it's the easiest way to see is when we've got a zoomed out view of the bush that they're sitting in. And Jason and I saw, was it 2 or 3? Two just before we found the bark spider. But now that it's time to actually find one, we can't. But we are both searching for chameleons and whatever else of interest pops its head along the way. And again, I'll reiterate, that is the beauty of driving around after dark. No different really to during the day. We never know what we're going to see around any corner we drive around. But at night, we've just got an array of different animals that we know we wouldn't be able to see during the day. So, considering we spend the majority of the time in daylight, it is great to increase our likelihood of seeing these nocturnal animals by staying out a little bit after dark. Just got a question through from Carolyn in Chicago. Good evening, Carolyn, and welcome. Carolyn's interested to know if there's any roads that we would not drive at night. And no, there's no difference really driving down any one of these roads because, as I've just said, we don't know what we may bump into on any of the given roads. So there's no difference in terms of risk or danger on any of the roads. And also in the vehicles at night, we are just as safe as we would be in the vehicles during the day. What I will emphasize, though, is that if we were on foot at night, that would be a very different story and a very scary one at that.
Dyker in the road.
A dyker?
In the road.
Any of us?
Yeah. It was.
Okay. Jason saw a dyker shooting off the road, but we'll leave it because we don't want to shine the spotlight on it, as we don't know if a leopard's around the next corner, and we would hate to have a blinded dyker being forced to deal with a leopard. So walking on foot during the day I am confident in doing, and yes, it is more dangerous than being out of the vehicle, in the vehicle, certainly, but it's not nearly as dangerous as walking around after dark. So I hope that answers your question, Carolyn. In the vehicle, we are equally as safe at night as we would be during the day. Well, folks, from myself and Jason, I'd like to say another big thank you for everyone that's been following us and all your support. And I hope you've really loved this afternoon's drive, because it's been an absolute cracker. And after seeing the cheetah this morning, having not seen one for 5 months, I really didn't think we'd see it again this afternoon. So I'm glad you were tuned in, and hope you enjoyed it. And Nikki says there's huge amounts of great screenshots that have come through this evening, so thanks very much for those. And well done to Jason on camera. Good to be with you again, buddy.
So good to be back.
And we will see you all for tomorrow's adventure.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Wendy. I've been doing a few loops around an area where Mvula was. We're now back down on Twin Dams Road, and well, I'm hoping that tomorrow we might be lucky enough to find some tracks of his. He doesn't appear to have come out back onto any of the roads, so I don't think he's left the area where we left him, or where he disappeared from us this morning. So some way off to the left of us right now. Very, very dense. When we go through the after Chelapan, we're going to go through a dip, and I think somewhere in that dip, and there's a good chance that he might have found something like Nyala or Dacre has found himself something to eat. Or he might just sit there sleeping. Tonya in central Pennsylvania. Tonya wants to know if it's ever possible with WildEarth or anywhere else. Well, this is exactly what a night safari entails, Tonya. Driving around. I don't know what else you mean by a night safari, but is to experience at the lodge almost. When you stay here and you've done safari, your afternoon safari runs into nighttime for a couple of hours. And you get the chance of, oh, I just found an owl. Giant eagle owl. Hope our signal's good. Bilbo. I'm trying to minimize the amount of light. You can see the pink eyelids as it turns its head towards us. Bubolactius, the giant eagle owl, also known as Virro's eagle owl. And a wonderful way to end what has been an absolutely fantastic day here at WildEarth. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being part of this live drive, this live presentation. It's the feedback from you viewers. It's the very interaction that we have with you viewers that make it so unique and make it so wonderful to be a part of. My name is Marc, and Vim is with me on camera. Thanks to Scott and Jason who've been on Jigger, and of course thanks to Nikki in Final Control. I think he wants to fly. Bye. Love you lots.